As you've heard on this podcast, getting a proper Lyme diagnosis early is so key. And for those people who are still sick, it's really important that they're able to find out what other infections their body might be fighting. It's time Looking at Lyme went truly international. We are headed to the land of the midnight sun to talk to an expert who spends a lot of time looking into a microscope. We'll speak with a microbiologist who is on the cutting edge of finding ways to ensure tick-borne diseases are accurately diagnosed. I was fortunate to meet Leona Gilbert last year at the iLads conference in Boston. I was so inspired to hear about her work. Leona is originally from Thunder Bay, another amazing Canadian scientist, and we spoke to her from Jyväskylä, Finland. Thank you so much for taking our call all the way from Finland today.
My pleasure.
How did you become involved in research in tick-borne diseases?
Actually, it was because a gentleman got bit by a tick when he was, I think, 6 years old. And this is like way back in the 1950s. And they didn't actually diagnose him because they couldn't back then. So he developed arthritis, and his father started a foundation, the Swartz Foundation. And when I was doing a postdoc at Penn State University, I did a presentation on diagnostic kits not actually picking up Streptococcus pyogenes. And this gentleman that got bitten by a tick and had arthritis, he actually got excited about our research and said, "Hey, can you do some research in tick-borne diseases?" And I said, "Of course I can, please." Yes. So that's the reason, because he convinced me that this area needed more research. This area needed, research that's directed and a direct feedback to benefiting the patients and benefiting the research surrounding this whole area, so that we could, come together internationally and move the science to help patients. So that's why I got into this area.
Now, I know your work involves a lot of microscopes, and so we're going to transfer what you see under a microscope to our listeners on the podcast. So however you can do it, can you explain to us what Tickplex is and how that works?
Oh, yeah. So Tickplex is a diagnostic kit that uses blood, okay, and we get rid of your blood cells. So what's left is sera. So we use sera from the patient, and we actually can tell if you have an immune response against different microbes. And some of the microbes that we have, of course, are Borrelia burgdorferi, Borrelia apsili, Borrelia garini. So we have the North American and we have the two European strains there. We also have their persister form there as well, so the round body form. And we have basically 10 other microbes that are associated, statistically speaking, with these patients that have long-term consequences of Lyme disease. So as an example, Mycoplasma pneumonia is there, Chlamydia pneumonia is there, Epstein-Barr virus is there, Coxsackie virus is there, because we did a large study and we saw that statistically speaking, these individuals that have long-term consequence of Lyme disease also suffer from multiple microbes. So Tickplex is a test kit that will actually test you for 6 different forms of Borrelia and 10 other forms of different microbes. And we test 2 different antibodies, so we can tell you 3 different disease stages, all on one test. So you don't need 30 different tests. You need just one Tickplex. That's the point.
That sounds like a big breakthrough.
Well, it's a very controversial breakthrough, and it's a big breakthrough because obviously right now, if you're going to be tested for multiple microbes, even if your clinician is even thinking that, it's going to cost a lot of money because you need many different tests for many different microbes. So, because right now the practice of medicine is basically testing one microbe with one antibody at a time. And that right there is ridiculous. We think, and research shows that these patients are suffering from multiple microbes. So why not put multiple microbes down on a diagnostic platform, test both antibodies, IgG and IgM, and you can get a very holistic view of what's going on with the patient. So you can really personalize treatment protocols for that individual patient. And I think that's where we need to, as a field of medicine, move to that direction and believing that these patients are suffering from multiple microbes.
You
Yeah.
must be seeing some interesting patterns starting to emerge.
We are. We're seeing a lot of individuals that, long-term sufferers, okay, or people that have been sick for a very long time, like even like 5 to 10 years, that they actually can't even build up an immune response to actually resolve these microbes. And then once they start getting, treatment to boost up their immune system, then we start seeing, these antibodies, raised against these microbes, and then the clinicians are able to actually treat these individual microbes. So that's a pattern we're seeing. We're also seeing a pattern that it is true. If you can catch the individual from being infected with borrelia early on, and you test for multiple microbes as well, and you treat for those, then there's a good chance that this patient won't suffer long term. So we're seeing those kind of patterns as well. And of course, we're seeing very unique individuals that are shining up all the time, and we call them universal positive universal positive seras. And what this means is that they're hyperactive. Their immune system is so hyperactive against anything, any diagnostic kit. It's not just Tickplex, but any serological diagnostic kit, they're shining up. And these are the individuals that are actually having a lot of immune complexes in their blood, and that's why they're shining up on this diagnostic test. And it's only now that we have this multiplex system that we can actually see these universal positive patients, and we can really direct and indicate, the treatment protocols for these individuals by knowing this and knowing the reason why they're shining up so bright. Because it's very easy for clinicians or very easy for scientists to say, well, that's a false positive. That's a false positive. But actually, thresholds of the diagnostic kits are there with a large amount of healthy controls, okay? And if we bring up the threshold and try to, eliminate these false positives, and we still get these universal positive patients, and not a lot. It's less than 3% of the patients right now that we have seen that actually are shining up. But these are long-term sufferers as well. So there's a correlation to that. And that's the point too. Because of our test, because it's multiplex, we're seeing this unique characteristic.
You mentioned that it's controversial, and I'm wondering if you can give me the very short version as to why that would be.
Yes, because the practice of medicine right now is testing one microbe, one antibody at a time. And if you do something different than that you're scrutinized. And we are being scrutinized.
So this is more along the lines of polymicrobial theory, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. And we are not the only ones that believe in this polymicrobial, theory, like, heart disease as well as, dental disease. There's tons of diseases that interplay with multiple microbes. But we are the ones that are saying, okay, let's get a diagnostic kit and let's, test for it, with this multiple microbe concept. So it's nothing new, but just it's still difficult because the paradigm in medicine is really testing one microbe, one antibody at a time, and we need to change that. And slowly but surely, hitting, our heads against the wall, we are going to do this, despite that it's, controversial or we're being scrutinized. So,
well, it sounds like you've got a window into the future there, and it sounds like you're ahead of the game.
Well, we're trying to let the science drive us to, some solutions so that we can help the patients. And that's the point. We need to let the science drive us and let the needs of the patient also influence where we're going with the science as well. So that's why we work really closely with patient groups. We work closely with advocacy groups. We work closely, of course, with scientific groups as well. And, like Lyme borreliosis, national organizations in different countries as well. So we need to hear back. We need to get feedback that we could use for implementing these novel ideas and test them robustly and let that drive the success of, these patients being, getting better personalized treatment protocols.
That is such great news. I'm curious, is your research mostly focused in Europe or is it global?
Well, it's because of coronavirus pandemic here. Actually, it is global. We have this international project that we wanted to start actually last December, And we have started in Australia and New Zealand and in other European countries. But the point is, and Canada, obviously, in United States and Mexico are three interested countries that I want them to participate in this study. What we want to do is we want to get a large scale testing and see kind of if we're having the same kind of characteristics, like, these universal positives, these individuals that have low immune systems, like, are we seeing that nationally, globally? Like, where are we seeing this? So those kind of characteristics we're researching globally. But unfortunately, we have to just delay some of this research because of the coronavirus, because we can't travel and so forth. So I was supposed to be in Canada in April starting this project there, but unfortunately, coronavirus hit us. So we're staying home right now in Finland. So.
What is the difference between co-infections and opportunistic infections?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Co-infections are those microbes that come with a tick bite. And opportunistic infections are those infections that an individual may succumb to because they have a weakened immune system or their immune system is not at its optimal level. Just like, think of it this way, that if you go into the hospital for surgery, you're more prone to, hospital infections. Those are those opportunistic infections. Same thing with these Lyme disease patients and patients that have been sick for a very long time. Their immune system may be lowered, or they don't have 100% working immune system, so they're prone to these opportunistic infections.
And what can you tell us about Borrelia persistent forms?
Yeah, so I just gave a webinar at the Chronic Pathologies. Was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it was virtual, obviously. But the Borrelia persistent forms, more and more research is coming out to indicate actually they are existing, okay? And despite antibiotic treatment or pressure in an individual, in an in vitro system, like in a lab tube, and also in a lot of animal studies like mice, gerbils, monkeys, okay, non-human primates, and as well as in humans, after antibiotics, there is still an existence of these persistent forms. There are a few theories that allows the persistence of Borrelia to exist, and some of the theories are that the biofilm may be a form that allows persistent forms to exist despite antibiotic treatments, because biofilms are usually more not more susceptible to antibiotic pressure. And round bodies as well, they are traditionally formed because of the antibiotic pressure, so that they're kind of resistant to the antibiotic pressure. And also these persistent forms could actually survive in privileged sites like synovial sites, okay, the central spinal fluid as well. And so those are kind of the theories of how persisters are lasting for a very long time. There's great studies coming out of University of Tulane in New Orleans by Monica Ember's research group. She does research on non-human primates. And it's really great that they treat these monkeys that have been infected with Borrelia with antibiotics. They put back the tick on it. The tick picks up the Borrelia, passes it on to the mouse, okay, and sees the Borrelia in the mouse. So this is really showing through many different techniques that Borrelia, despite having antibiotic treatment, can persist and can actually reinfect different animals. And in these persister forms, yeah, so the theory is that they're difficult to get rid of. But of course, going from an in vitro lab tube testing to actually human testing with different combination of antibiotics and also other chemicals, like right now, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was the Dapsone is being used in a combination of antibiotics to get rid of actually persister forms of Borrelia. And they've had some success with this in vitro system. Now they need to move that to a human system, and then of course show it in the human that this combination of these drugs are actually working. So it's a great area of research. Some exciting things are coming out, and yeah, I just can't wait to do more studies on these persister forms as well. to see if we could actually diagnose for them. Well, in Tickplex, we have the round-bodied persistiform in our test kit, but it also would be interesting if we could use biofilms as a marker for persistiforms as well. But let's see if that will work. Yeah.
Are people able to order the Tickplex kit in Canada?
Well, they can order it from our customers here in Europe. And unfortunately, that's the only pathway at the moment. I have to say, another reason why I was supposed to go to Canada is to set up the lab there so that we could have Tickplex there. And we would have had it there, but unfortunately, coronavirus hit us. So the Canadians ordering a Canadian Tickplex test has to wait just a little bit longer, probably next spring, hopefully, if I can get there. But if any Canadian wants this test kit, they could go through our customers. You go onto our website and you can find out our customers, and you can order the Tickplex directly to our customers. And what is needed is basically just a blood draw. And all the instructions on how to get a blood draw and how to ship it to our customers on this side of the world is given by our customers. Just like Armin's Lab, if you decide to go and buy Tickplex from Armin's Lab, you can just go directly order the Tickplex from online from Armin's Lab, and they'll give you the instructions and a blood draw kit itself so that you can get your blood drawn and you can ship it to Armin's Lab. That's one example.
Oh, that's so great to know. Thank you for that information. In our episode notes, I wanted to just post a link. As I was staying up late last night doing research for our interview, I came across one of your articles that you published around pleomorphic forms. And so obviously it's a whole different language than what I understand, but I found the images really interesting. So I'm just wondering, speaking to just sort of the lay person here, what kind of images are people looking at in there, under the microscope? Because obviously not many of us really get the opportunity to look at any of this stuff under the microscope.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Well, think of that. The borrelia in its native form or parent form is like a spiral, like a corkscrew, the spiral. And when you add pressure, like temperature or pH or antibiotics, that corkscrew-like structure actually coils up into a round ball, like a beach ball, okay? And that is the round body. Now, you put the parent form, like let's say maybe 10 parent forms and 10 round bodies together in a big clump, that would be a biofilm. And these are the three most dominant forms of pleomorphic forms of borrelia, so the different forms that borrelia can take. And again, clinically speaking, we can see through biopsies, different forms of borrelia do exist, but unfortunately, we need to now connect more and more of this research with clinical consequence of these pleomorphic forms. So I know there's great work with Alan McDonald and Judith Miklovich that have actual brain biopsies that shows different pleomorphic forms like the biofilm and round body from brain autopsy samples, but yet that's not directly linked to the death or consequence of Lyme disease. So we have to do some more research to connect, clinically speaking, affirmatively that the pleomorphic form caused these manifestations in the patients, and that there needs more research. So we have a ways to go, but at least there are great people, doing it, looking at these beach balls and these corkscrew-like structures and these big masses of biofilm under the microscope. So I'm sure we will hit some really great milestones in the next coming years.
That's amazing. I will post that link in our episode notes. So thanks for walking us through what we're looking at in those slides. And we really look forward to welcoming you back to Canada when you do come back. You're a very inspiring Canadian scientist, and I know you originate from Thunder Bay because we had a good chat about that at the conference last year. So shout out to Thunder Bay, and we look forward to welcoming you back to Canada whenever that happens.
We will be soon.
Thank you, Leona, for that call via Skype all the way from Finland. I find it fascinating how Leona is looking at multiple infections that are infecting people with Lyme disease. That Tickplex test is groundbreaking, and it will really support doctors in diagnosing their patients accurately. And that's another podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe in the outdoors.